I'm Lyric Vaughn, 29, a graphic designer from suburban Seattle. My life is my daughter, Ivy, and the quiet hum of my sketchpad. Last week, my father died. A heart attack took him at 62, sudden and cruel. But what broke me wasn't his death. It was what happened next. At his funeral, rain soaked my coat. Grief drowned my heart. My sister's husband, Dean, leaned in with a smirk. "Marla gets the 10 million, he said, loud enough to hush the crowd. She's the oldest, it's hers by right. I stood frozen. $10 million? Dad's fortune, tech patents, stocks, our family home was no secret. But Dean's words hit like a slap. No will, no warning, just silence and the sound of my father's legacy slipping away. My mother, Ruth, clutched my arm, her face pale. Marla, 32, stood smug, already counting the cash. Ivy, my 10-year-old, pressed against me. Her eyes asked questions I couldn't answer. Dad was gone, his story silenced. Now this? I wanted to scream, but my throat locked. Marla's always been the reckless one. Jobless, chasing thrills, burning through cash. 2 years ago, she brought home Dean, a slick ex-salesman with a smile too sharp. They married fast. Dad paid, though Marla spent it all. Me? I stayed steady, raising Ivy alone since my husband died. Designing logos, visiting Dad. Marla only called for handouts. That day, rain stung my face. Dean's voice cut through. "We're golden, Marla," he said, fists bumping her. Mourners stared. Ruth's grip tightened. I knew Dad's will, but Marla didn't. She thought it was hers, her birthright. Mr. Kessler, the lawyer, stepped in, his voice like steel. "Dean, that's not how it works." Marla's smirk vanished. Dean's eyes narrowed. Then came the twist. He hissed to Marla, loud enough for me to hear, "I borrowed $500,000 against the estate. We're done if this falls through." My heart stopped. Alone? Against Dad's money? My mind spun. Had they bet on Marla's claim? Racking up debt they couldn't pay? Ivy's hand trembled in mine. Fear flickered in her eyes, mirroring mine. I couldn't breathe. The funeral wasn't over, and they were gutting Dad's legacy. Grief burned into fury. Worry for Ruth gnawed at me. I'm the steady one. Always was. Marla called me boring, but I built a life for Ivy. Now I felt raw, exposed. What loan? How deep was their hole? Why was Marla so sure? This isn't just about money. It's about betrayal, family, and fighting for what's right. You felt that sting. Someone taking what's yours, twisting the knife. Stick with me. These twists will hit hard. If this hooks you, smash that subscribe button for stories that cut deep. You won't believe Marla's next move or the secret that flips it all. My hands shook as we left the cemetery. Ruth whispered, "Lyric, we need to talk." I nodded, dread pooling in my gut. Tomorrow's meeting with Mr. Kessler loomed. Marla's eyes burned into me. Dean's loan hung like a noose. What had they already taken? How far would they go for the rest? The lawyer's office smelled of old leather and coffee. I sat beside Ruth, my hands folded tight. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes fixed on the floor. Across the room, Marla slouched, picking at her nails. Dean paced, his polished shoes clicking. Mr. Kessler cleared his throat. His words came sharp, like a blade. "Marla, you're not your father's biological child." The air stilled. Marla's head snapped up. Her eyes darted to me, then Ruth. I'd known since I was a teen, a whispered truth Dad shared. Marla hadn't. Her face drained of color. "What?" she spat. Dean stopped pacing, his jaw tight. "That's a lie," he said. "She's the eldest. She gets the 10 million. I stayed silent. My heart pounded, not from shock, but from Marla's glare. She'd always acted superior, the firstborn. Now that crumbled. Ruth's hands trembled in her lap. She looked small, fragile. I wanted to shield her, but my own anger simmered. Marla had bled Dad dry for years. Parties, trips, that gaudy wedding. I'd watched, biting my tongue while raising Ivy, scraping by on freelance gigs. Mr. Kessler adjusted his glasses. His will is clear, he said. Lyric and Ruth inherit everything. Marla's chair scraped back. No way, she snapped. I'm his daughter. Dean's hand gripped her shoulder, too tight. His eyes flicked to me, calculating. I felt a chill. They weren't just greedy. They were desperate. Then came the twist. Marla reached into her purse, pulling out a folded paper. This proves I'm adopted, she said, voice shaking. Dad signed it. She slid it across the table. My stomach dropped. A letter in Dad's handwriting claiming he'd legally adopted her. Ruth gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. I stared at the paper, my mind racing. Had Dad lied to me? Was Marla his after all? Mr. Kessler took the letter. He studied it, his face unreadable. Seconds stretched. Then he spoke, calm but cutting. This is a forgery. My breath caught. Marla's eyes widened. What? She stammered. Kessler held up the paper. The signature's off, the notary's fake. I have your father's original documents. He produced a file, crisp and official. No adoption ever occurred. Marla's face crumpled. Dean cursed under his breath. I saw it then, their plan unraveling. They'd banked on that letter, on fooling us. My anger flared. But something else stirred. Pity. Marla thought she belonged, thought Dad saw her as his own. Now, she was nothing. Ruth reached for her, but Marla jerked away. You knew, she hissed at Ruth. You both kept this from me. I wanted to speak, to say I'd carried this secret too, but my voice caught. Marla's pain was real, raw, yet her lies cut deeper. Dean grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. We're not done, he muttered. His eyes locked on mine, a promise of trouble. My heart sunk. That $500,000 loan he'd mentioned, it wasn't just debt. It was a trap they'd set, and we were all caught in it. I looked at Ruth, her face etched with guilt. She'd raised Marla, loved her, but never told her the truth. I felt the weight of it. Our family fractured, with $10 million tearing us apart. As we left, Marla's forged letter burned in my mind. What else was she hiding? What would she do to get that money? I drove home, the Seattle rain blurring my windshield. Ruth sat silent, her hands knotted in her lap. Marla's forged letter haunted me. Her accusation, "You both kept this from me," rang in my ears. I wanted to protect Ruth, to shield Ivy, but Dean's parting words, "We're not done," felt like a storm brewing. My gut churned. That $500,000 loan wasn't just a mistake. It was a plan, and I was in its crosshairs. At home, Ivy was curled up with her sketchbook. Her smile steadied me. I tucked her in, but sleep wouldn't come. Marla's desperation clung like damp air. She'd always been reckless, bouncing from schemes to debts, leaning on Dad's wallet. Now, with the will against her, what would she do? I checked my phone, hoping for calm. Instead, I found a text from Marla. "You stole my life, Lyric. I'll take it back." My heart raced, a threat, plain and sharp. Next morning, I met Ruth at her house. She looked frail, her eyes red. Ruth called. She says, "You schemed with me to cut her out." I clenched my fists. "She's lying, Mom." Ruth shook her head. "She's my daughter, too." Her guilt cut me. I wanted to scream. Marla's lies weren't Ruth's fault, but arguing felt cruel. Instead, I hugged her, promising to fix this. Dean's voice broke the silence. He stood at the door, uninvited. "We're suing," he said, smirking. "Marla deserves her share." I stared, disbelief rising. "On what grounds?" I asked. He shrugged, too casual. "Fraud? You hid the truth about her." His confidence unnerved me. Marla hovered behind him, eyes burning. I saw it then. Her desperation wasn't just anger. It was a plan, calculated and cold. I needed answers. That afternoon, I dug into Ruth's finances, something I'd avoided out of respect. Her bank statements were on her desk, untouched since Dad's death. My hand shook as I scanned them. Thousands gone. Withdrawals, transfers, all recent. My throat tightened. Had Marla done this? Then I saw it. A recurring payment to a company called Apex Lending. My stomach dropped. It matched the loan Dean mentioned. He wasn't just borrowing against the estate. He was draining Ruth's savings. Then came the twist. I logged into Ruth's email, searching for clues. Buried in her inbox was a message from Dean to an Apex lender. Collateral secured. Ruth Vaughn's house. She won't notice. My blood ran cold. Her house? The home Dad built? Where Ivy played? He had leveraged it, risking everything Ruth had left. I reread the email, my hands shaking. He'd acted alone, behind Marla's back. Did she even know? I confronted Ruth. Her face crumpled. "I gave Marla some money," she admitted. "But not this." She didn't know about the house. My anger surged, not at her, but at Dean. He'd preyed on her trust, her guilt. Marla's accusations were a distraction, but Dean's betrayal ran deeper. I felt exposed, my family's foundation cracking, Ivy's future, Ruth's security, all at risk. I called Mr. Kessler, voice steady despite my fear. "Dean's stealing from Mom," I said. He promised to investigate. As I hung up, Marla's text flashed in my mind. "I'll take it back." Was she in on Dean's scheme, or just his pawn? Either way, they'd gone too far. I looked at Ruth, her eyes pleading for peace. I couldn't give her that yet. Not until I stopped them. The lawyer's call came at dawn. Mr. Kessler's voice was steady, but urgent. "The will is final," he said. "You and Ruth inherit the $10 million. Marla gets nothing." I sat on my couch, phone pressed to my ear. Ivy slept upstairs, her sketchbook open beside her. Relief washed over me, sharp and brief. Dad's wishes were clear. Marla's recklessness, her forged letter, had sealed her fate. But Dean's email about Ruth's house gnawed at me. My mother's home, our family's anchor, was at risk. I couldn't rest. I drove to Ruth's house, the Seattle mist heavy. She was in the kitchen, stirring tea, her hands shaking. "Marla hasn't called," she said. Her voice was soft, pained. I hated seeing her like this, caught between guilt and betrayal. "We'll protect the house," I promised. She nodded, but her eyes were distant. I checked the locks, the windows, my nerves on edge. Dean's threat to sue, his secret loan, they weren't bluffing. They were planning something. Days passed, tense and quiet. Marla and Dean vanished. No texts, no calls. I should have felt safe, but dread clung to me. I kept working, designing logos, tucking Ivy in each night, but my mind stayed on Ruth. Her savings were dwindling, drained by Dean's withdrawals. I hired a private investigator, a quiet man named Holt. He confirmed the Apex loan. Dean's desperate. He's got creditors breathing down his neck. I clenched my jaw. Desperate men do dangerous things. One evening, I took Ivy to Ruth's house. We planned to pack some of Dad's things, photo albums, his old journals. The house felt empty, too still. Ivy ran to the backyard, her laughter a fleeting comfort. Ruth sorted papers, her movement slow. I opened Dad's study, the smell of his cologne lingering. Then I heard it, a creak upstairs. My heart jumped. The house was supposed to be empty. I grabbed Ruth's arm. "Stay here," I whispered. She nodded, eyes wide. I crept upstairs, my phone's flashlight cutting through the dark. The hallway was silent, but a door was ajar. Marla's old room. I pushed it open. My breath caught. Marla sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes. Dean stood by the window, typing on his phone. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. Marla's eyes snapped to me, cold and hard. "This is my house," she said. "I belong here." Dean didn't look up. "We're staying," he added, voice flat. I stared, fury rising. "You can't squat here," I said. "The will's final." Marla laughed, bitter. "You think you can erase me?" she said. "I'm Dad's daughter, blood or not." Dean pocketed his phone, smirking. "We're not leaving, Lyric. This place is ours." My hand shook. Ivy was downstairs. Ruth, too. I couldn't let this escalate. But their audacity burned. They'd forged papers, stolen from Ruth, and now this? Then came the twist. I noticed Dean's phone screen before he hit it. A real estate listing, Ruth's house priced at $2 million. My blood ran cold. The photos were recent, the description polished. "You're selling Mom's house?" I asked, voice trembling. Dean's smirk faltered. Marla froze. "How did you—" she started. I cut her off. "I saw the listing. Forged documents again?" Dean stepped closer, his eyes narrow. "Stay out of it, Lyric. You don't want trouble." My heart pounded. They'd forged ownership papers, listed the house online, planning to cash out before we noticed. Ruth's home, Dad's legacy, was a click away from being sold. I thought of Ivy, playing outside, unaware. My fear turned to steel. "Get out," I said, voice low. Marla stood, defiant. "You can't stop us," she said. "I deserve this." I called Holt from the hallway, my voice steady. "They're here," I told him. "They're selling the house." He promised to alert the police. Downstairs, Ruth clutched Ivy, her face pale. Marla's words echoed. "I deserve this." But this wasn't just about money. It was about tearing our family apart. As I locked the door behind us, Dean's smirk lingered in my mind. They weren't done, and neither was I. The police arrived after Marla and Dean fled the house. Their forged listing for Ruth's house was pulled offline, but my nerves stayed raw. I kept Ivy close, her sketches now filled with jagged lines. Ruth moved in with us, her frailty stark under my apartment's lights. Marla's silence felt louder than her threats. I checked my phone constantly, expecting another text. None came, but I knew they weren't done. That $10 million was their obsession. I drove Ivy to school, the Seattle rain relentless. Her backpack bounced as she ran inside. I lingered, watching her disappear, my heart heavy. Ruth was safe at home, but Dean's scheme to sell her house burned in my mind. Holt, the investigator, called. "They're hiding in a motel," he said. "Dean's talking to shady buyers." My stomach twisted. Buyers? For what? The house was locked, the title secure. Or so I thought. That evening, I took Ruth and Ivy to the family home. We needed Dad's journals, his voice in those pages a comfort. The driveway was dark, the air thick with mist. Ivy skipped ahead, her ponytail swinging. I unlocked the door, Ruth's hand in mine. Then it happened. A car's engine roared. Headlights blinded me. Tires screeched. The car swerved toward Ivy. I screamed, lunging forward. Ivy dove to the grass, unharmed. The car sped off, vanishing into the night. My knees hit the ground. Ivy sobbed, clinging to me. Ruth trembled, her breath ragged. I called the police, my voice shaking. They found the car abandoned, registered to Dean. He claimed it was stolen, a lie I didn't buy. At the hospital, Ivy was checked for shock. She was okay, but her eyes held fear. I held her tight, guilt flooding me. I'd brought her there. I'd put her in danger. Marla visited the next day. She stood in the hospital room, arms crossed. "You're tough, Lyric," she said, her tone cold. Pity about the scare. Her words dripped with venom. I stared, my anger rising. "Was that an accident?" I asked. She shrugged, smirking. "Dean's clumsy. You shouldn't push us." My blood boiled. Push them? They tried to sell Ruth's home, and now this? I saw it then. Marla wasn't just greedy. She was dangerous. Then came the twist. I checked my phone, needing answers. A notification pinged. An unknown number had texted me. "Dean. Scared her good. She'll back off now." My heart stopped. The message was meant for someone else, sent to me by mistake. Dean hadn't just swerved at Ivy, he'd planned it, bragged about it. My hands shook. Who was he texting? A creditor? A partner? I forwarded it to Holt, my voice steady despite the rage. I said, "Find out who this is." Ruth sat beside me, her face pale. "Why would they do this?" she whispered. I had no answer. Marla's taunt echoed, pity about the scare. She knew. Maybe not the details, but enough. I thought of Dad, his trust in family. He'd be heartbroken. I was heartbroken, but I couldn't break. Ivy needed me. Ruth needed me. I looked at my daughter, asleep in the hospital bed, her face peaceful. My resolve hardened. I called Mr. Kessler. "Dean tried to hurt Ivy. We have proof." He promised legal action. As I hung up, Marla's smirk lingered in my mind. She thought she'd scare me into giving up. She was wrong. That text wasn't just evidence. It was a spark. I'd fight harder now. For Ivy, for Ruth, for Dad's legacy. They'd crossed a line, and I was ready to push back. I couldn't shake Dean's text. Scared her good. It burned in my mind, a confession of his attack on Ivy. I kept Ruth and Ivy close, my Seattle apartment a fortress. Ruth's health was fading. Her hands shook, her steps faltered. I blamed Marla's chaos. She'd tried to hurt my daughter, stolen from Ruth's savings, listed her house for sale. Yet Ruth insisted on seeing her. "She's still my girl," she said, her voice frail. I bit my tongue. How could she forgive? Marla called, demanding to care for Ruth. "I'm her daughter too," she said. Against my instincts, I let her visit. Ruth begged me. "She needs a chance," she said. I arranged for Marla to stay at Ruth's house, hoping she'd prove me wrong. I checked daily, bringing groceries, watching Ruth's face for signs of strain. At first, Marla played the part, cooking, cleaning, smiling. I almost believed her. But something felt off. Her eyes were too sharp, her kindness forced. A week later, I noticed Ruth's medication tray. Pills were wrong, doses doubled, others missing. My heart sank. Ruth looked pale, her eyes glassy. "Marla helps," she murmured, but her hands shook worse. I checked the fridge, empty save for stale bread. The house was a mess, dishes piled, trash overflowing. Marla wasn't caring for her. She was neglecting her. I moved Ruth to my apartment that day, Ivy helping pack her bags. Ruth didn't protest, just stared out the window. I dug deeper, my anger rising. Ruth's bank account was nearly dry. More withdrawals, thousands gone. I found checks in Marla's handwriting, forged with Ruth's signature. My blood boiled. She'd been stealing while Ruth wasted away. I called Holt, the investigator. "Track Marla's spending," I said. He found purchases, jewelry, a new phone, all in Marla's name. I wanted to confront her, but Ruth's cough stopped me. She needed me more than my rage needed release. Then came the twist. Ruth called me to her bedside, her voice barely a whisper. "I gave Marla money," she said. My jaw dropped. "Why?" I asked. Her eyes filled with tears. "She threatened to tell everyone," she said, "about my past, before your father." My heart stopped. Marla was blackmailing her. Ruth confessed a brief affair years ago before I was born. Marla wasn't Dad's, and Ruth had hidden it. Marla found out, used it to extort cash. I felt sick. Not just betrayal, but Ruth's shame, laid bare. I held her hand, my voice soft. "You didn't fail her," I said. But Ruth shook her head. "I failed you both," she said. Guilt crushed me. I'd let Marla near her, trusted her for Ruth's sake. Now Ruth was paying the price. I thought of Ivy, safe in her room sketching. I couldn't let Marla's poison touch her too. My resolve hardened. I'd protect them, no matter the cost. I called Mr. Kessler. "Marla is forging checks," I said, "and blackmailing Mom." He promised to freeze Ruth's accounts. As I hung up, Ruth's cough echoed down the hall. I checked her pills, fixed the doses. Marla's betrayal wasn't just theft. It was cruelty, preying on Ruth's love. I looked at Ivy's drawings, pinned to the fridge. A family, whole and happy. That's what I'd fight for. Marla thought she'd break us. She underestimated me. Her blackmail was a line crossed, and I was ready to draw one of my own. Ruth's cough grew worse. I sat by her bed, holding her hand. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic. Ivy drew quietly in the corner, her crayon scratching paper. Marla's blackmail had broken Ruth's spirit. The forged checks, the neglect, the car aimed at Ivy, it was too much. I blamed myself. I'd let Marla near her, hoping for change. Now Ruth was fading, and my heart ached with guilt. The doctors tried everything, but Ruth's heart was weak. One night she squeezed my hand. "Protect Ivy," she whispered. Her eyes closed. She was gone. Grief hit me like a wave. I sobbed, Ivy clinging to me. Ruth had been my anchor, her love steady through Dad's death, Marla's chaos. Now I was alone, except for Ivy. I vowed to honor Ruth's wish. Marla wouldn't touch us again. I returned to the family home to plan the funeral. The door was unlocked. My stomach dropped. Inside, the house was gutted. Dad's journals, Ruth's jewelry, the antique clock, gone. Marla and Dean had looted it. I stood in the empty living room, fury replacing shock. They'd stolen more than objects. They'd taken memories, pieces of Dad and Ruth. I called Holt, my voice shaking. "They robbed the house," I said. He promised to track them. The will reading came days later. Mr. Kessler's office was cold, the air heavy. Marla and Dean sat across from me, defiant. Marla's eyes were red, but not from grief. Dean tapped his foot, impatient. Kessler read the will. "Lyric inherits everything," he said. "Marla is excluded due to her actions." Marla's face twisted. "That's a lie," she shouted. Dean slammed his fist on the table. "She's Ruth's daughter. She deserves it." I stared, my anger cold. I said, "You stole from Mom. You neglected her. You tried to hurt Ivy." Marla flinched. Dean's eyes narrowed. Kessler held up a hand. "The estate's depleted," he said. "Marla's withdrawals and theft left little." Marla's jaw dropped. "What?" she stammered. I felt no pity. They'd taken Ruth's savings, her heirlooms, her peace. Now they'd get nothing. Then came the twist. I found a letter in Ruth's purse, tucked in her Bible. Dad's handwriting, dated a year ago. My heart stopped. "Marla, I forgive you, but your choices hurt us. I can't trust you with our legacy. Lyric will carry it." Tears stung my eyes. Dad had known Marla's greed, her lies. He'd hoped she'd change, but protected us instead. I clutched the letter, grief and gratitude mixing. Ruth had kept it secret, her last act of love. Marla's voice broke my thoughts. "You planned this," she screamed. "You turned them against me." I shook my head. "You did that yourself," I said. Dean stood, his face dark. "You'll regret this, Lyric," he muttered. I stood too, my voice steady. "I'm pressing charges," I said, "for the theft, the forgery, the car." Marla's eyes widened. Dean froze. Kessler nodded, his pen moving. He said, "The police have the evidence, including Dean's text." I left the office, Dad's letter in my pocket. Ruth's death, Marla's betrayal, it burned. But Dad's words gave me strength. I'd lost my parents, but not their love. Ivy waited at home, her drawings alight in the dark. Marla and Dean thought they'd break me. They were wrong. I'd fight for justice, for Ruth's memory, for Ivy's future. Their greed had cost them everything. Mine would cost them more. The courtroom was cold, its silence heavy. I sat, hands clasped, as the judge read the verdict. Marla and Dean faced me, their faces pale. The evidence was ironclad. Dean's text, bragging about scaring Ivy. Marla's forged checks. The stolen heirlooms traced to a pawn shop. Holt's investigation had sealed it. "Guilty," the judge said. Dean got 3 years for fraud and endangerment. Marla, an accomplice, got probation, but no inheritance. Their greed had unraveled them. I felt no joy. Justice was bittersweet. Marla's eyes met mine, pleading. "Lyric, help me," she whispered as guards led Dean away. I shook my head. She'd hurt Ruth, endangered Ivy, betrayed Dad's memory. I thought of his letter, forgiving her, yet protecting us. My heart ached, but I turned away. Ivy needed me whole. Ruth's love, Dad's trust, they were my strength now, not Marla's shadow. Back home, I sorted through the wreckage. The family house stood empty, its warmth stolen. I found a photo of Dad and Ruth, smiling at Ivy's 5th birthday. Tears fell. Their legacy wasn't the $10 million, depleted by Marla's theft. It was their love, their lessons. I held Ivy close, her sketches brightening our apartment. She drew us as a family, unbroken. I vowed to make that real, to rebuild what Marla tore down. Then came the twist. I visited the bank, closing Ruth's accounts. Tucked in her safe deposit box was a note from Ruth, written before she died. "Lyric, use the money for good," it read. "Make us proud." My breath caught. Ruth had known her end was near. She'd trusted me to carry on. With the remaining estate, I made a choice. I donated half to a Seattle art center named for Dad and Ruth. A place for kids like Ivy to create, to heal. It felt right, like sunlight after rain. The center's opening was quiet, joyful. Ivy cut the ribbon, her smile wide. I saw Ruth in her eyes, Dad in her courage. The crowd clapped. Strangers, neighbors, all touched by the gift. I felt peace, not from wealth, but from purpose. Marla's betrayal had pushed me to this. I'd turned her poison into something beautiful. Dad's forgiveness, Ruth's trust, they lived on in that space, in Ivy's future. Life moved forward. I worked, designing logos with new fire. Ivy thrived, her sketches bolder. Marla wrote once, asking for money. I didn't reply. She'd find her way, or she wouldn't. I'd carried her long enough. Ruth's note stayed in my wallet, a reminder. Life isn't about what you're owed, it's about what you give. I'd lost my parents, fought my sister, but found strength in their love. You felt that too, the weight of loss, the power of rising above. Hold on to what matters. Build something lasting. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who's fought for family. Subscribe for more tales of heart and grit. You won't want to miss what's next. I stood at the art center, Ivy's hand in mine. The wind carried Seattle's mist, but I felt warm. Dad and Ruth were gone, but their legacy wasn't. It was in Ivy's laugh, in the walls of that center, in me. I'd faced betrayal and won, not with money, but with love.